plans with regards to land, so that when you have it, at least you turn it into a productive asset.
And to what extent do we put single individual selfish rights upon kind of against the masses?
I think we have to realize that change is happening and it is being driven, at a large scale in the way that our cities are made.
We live here, we shop here, we work here. And it works well to a certain degree, but it becomes inconvenient for a lot of people, especially when we're looking at low and middle income people.
No, I should have stayed, I should have built this house there. I should have added value to this land. I should have given a child an opportunity to see that, there's hope.
My name is Malakiat Aholo, as we discussed. I'm a special planning student here at NAST. I'm part of the Land Pavilion project. My role on this project is project coordination. I'm sort of like a project coordinator, so I keep the whole thing together. The whole aim of this project is to spark a debate on the land issue in the country, whereby we are looking to engage society in general, especially the youth, in airing their views and perceptions on the land issue at the moment. In the end, this project intends to create awareness within society as to problems that people face with regards to access to land, housing, and the general planning of our cities. Because the world, as we know it, is changing. We are faced with a lot of problems, including urbanization, which is what's putting pressure on our cities. So we need to change the paradigm of how we think about how our cities are planned and how we interact with the city, because this is land, and land is a finite resource. It's not all, you can't produce more land. It's not like sweets. So if you do not engage in proper planning, especially the space, you will find yourself with no land to live. And as we know, demographics, people are keep increasing. We every day you find new babies are born, and when these babies grow, they need somewhere to live. So if we do not plan for the future right now, we will find ourselves in a situation where we have no land to live on. And land is the basis of production. So if we are going to produce, or we talk about things like food security, but where does food come from? Food comes from the land. You need to till the land through agricultural production in order for people to feed themselves. So what I'm trying to say is we want to change the planning of our cities from the apartheid perspective to a new future generation perspective, where we embrace our own ideas of what we want our cities to be or to look like. Hence the Land Pavilion. It is here to create awareness amongst the people. What actually is land? What is needed to be done? What are the problems? And so forth.
Thank you. That's Justina. I can still ask you one more question.
Okay.
Art is obviously the platform to kind of send your message or bring your message across to the people. How would you say that, how is art involved in this project? How is art involved in bringing your message to the people?
Okay.
And you can touch on the pavilions just briefly, or just name them.
Okay. So spatial planning, as I understand it, is both an art and a science. So when we bring art without science, you have good images, but with which cannot be implemented. But what we want to do is combine art and science. So by that I mean a pavilion where people see and then engagement. People create dialogue. We discuss issues. We brainstorm solutions. It's a participatory act. You know, we want to encourage participatory planning where people are engaged. It should be top down. Huh? We want things, actually, we want our plans to be done by the people themselves, for the people. Instead of just having plans coming from a top-down perspective, which is the old way of planning. So that is the whole idea behind the Land Pavilion. It's engagement with society to come up with a solution for the issue, which is land. And I think the only way we can actually do good planning is by engaging our people to be the ones who are spearheading the change that they want. Because imagine our cities currently are populated with different classes or in society. So if plans are only done by those who are seen as in a position to make a change through their levels of society, then we will end up having a sort of bottleneck where plans are only done tailored to, you know, specific individuals and neglecting the rest. We see an example of our peripheries, you know, our informal settlements. You know, those are the kind of issues that we would like to deliberate with this Land Pavilion, where the people are actually the ones who are spearheading their own change.
Hi, my name is Mutago Nganus. I'm a third-year student studying architecture at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. Yeah.
Okay. How has your experience been so far working with people in different disciplines and on this project so far?
Okay, so it's been hard because it's been hard and it's been interesting learning from different people from different disciplines and learning how they do things and applying that to what we're doing. And it also teaches me kind of a look into how things go down in the real world when you want to plan something. So it's so easy for us as architects to be here planning things on our little tables, but then when you have to actually physically implement it into the real world, where you get planning students, where we get actual architects from the offices to come in and come help us to actually bring our ideas into the physical world, into the real world, quote unquote. Yeah.
Would you say this is something that you've learned? Tell us about what you've learned in the field, also with regard to this project at hand now. About, you know, and this is also in regard to urban land discussions.
Okay, in urban land discussions, I've learned there's so much that goes into dividing land. Because when we started this project, honestly, I was questioning myself, like, what is land? Like, why don't we have the land that we want? Or like, you know, these questions of like, why can't I just acquire land? And I've learned through this process, there's so much more. You need to look into the policies that goes behind land. You need to look into the people, the social aspects of the land. You need to look into the history. And all of this adds up to the land question itself. So I've learned it's very interesting, and it's very interesting to see how we were able to tackle it, to kind of digest it and see how we can break it down. I feel like I'm repeating myself. But yeah.
Yeah. So what are your hopes then with this project, this pavilion project that we have going on with Martin and Akira and everyone?
My hopes are people will become more informed about the basics of land. So like, what do I do if today I want to go and apply for land? Who do I speak to? and also the overall of understanding and changing our perspective on land, because in Namibia we have this thing of everybody should have one plot on one house, but then we should try to see it in a different way, where we should maybe bring in densification and, you know, prevent urban sprawl by building in the city, and just changing the way we look at the city. Instead of building to the outside of the city, try infilling the city, because we have so many open spaces in Windhoek that just sit there unused, and it's not like it's a public park, because it's just literally just a field that's not used by anyone. Yeah.
Let me ask you one question off the topic here. There's a video that I came across where they were speaking about expanding Windhoek, but then turning Independence Avenue into a walkway where there will be no cars driving.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that's a solution towards, like, I guess what we're dealing with now in terms of land?
Definitely, because we need more space for people to walk and experience the city. Because I love walking around the city, and it's so hard to walk around, because like right now there's even no interactive spaces, like where there's no shade. It's just something simple like that. Even in streets where you can walk out there, there's nothing like that for the city. So it will be nice to have kind of remove cars and remove the pollution and just have people walking through the city and experiencing the city. Yeah.
My name is Natasha Ilonga. I am professionally an architect in training, and I work for Nina Moritz Architects. And in this particular Land Pavilion project, I do a bit of everything, but mainly I manage the admin parts, so especially helping Martin out, writing emails, you know, approaching funders, approaching people that own sites that we have interest in, to assisting on designing the pavilions, to organizing meetings, trying to get students together, trying to manage our budget. So yeah, I'm like a multifaceted member in this setup. Yeah.
Why? What was the pull factor to join the Land Pavilion? Why the Land Pavilion?
To be honest, I kind of got dragged in at the last minute. Not really at the last minute. Martin and the students, they had the idea to possibly get into doing art pavilions or start a land pavilion thing for the city. They had their first initial meeting, and then the second meeting, I got a call. It's like, you should join this meeting, and so I got in. I personally have interest in public art installations, especially this crossbreed between architecture and art is a bit of an obsession. So obviously this is an opportunity. So here I am.
Okay, so usually presentations, not necessarily of this sort, but usually a presentation would take, or with regard to this discussion of land, would normally take place in a conference room. Why? Can you tell us why this is happening in a public space?
First of all, I think we wanted to also play on that that irony, that idea of topics being for the public, or discussions being for the public, but are held in closed, invite-only spaces, which is completely ironic. So the next move, or the next space, was to take over, actual public space, but already that in itself was political, because actual public space is not actually for the public in the first place. It's also privately owned to a certain extent. So in essence, the whole Land Pavilion it's at the same time an experiment, at the same time a journey to trying to unlock public space in the city and allow it to be more accessible to initiatives like the Land Pavilion. So art installations, artists literally being allowed to freely use public space to experiment more, experiment with the public. Because the public, it's seen as a single entity, but at the same time, the public in itself is an audience, and the public is the best audience you can get, and where do you find it? In public space. So it makes sense. Yeah.
Would you say that obviously with conferences and things like that, meetings are usually very tedious, and it's just a lot of sitting and everything like that. Whereas with art, in terms of now taking in, digesting information, can you maybe just touch on how digestive or how digestible an art installation would be then to a discussion in a conference room.
Yeah, it also has its layers of trickiness, because at any given moment, it could literally, the point could just go right past you. But what it does allow you is a little bit more leeway to experiment. So you try this, you test this, in their different forms. You get pictures, you get sound clips. You can literally paint an entire floor red, for example, and just watch how people react to that, as opposed to, I think, conference room presentations where, I think we all have the similar feeling of just conference rooms and those presentations just shut down anybody. If you're not part of that circle, you're not gonna engage at the end of the day. So I think the arts direction is a lot more multifaceted and a lot more accommodating of especially diverse groups in public, as opposed to just a monogamous, very monochrome setting of conference spaces.
Okay. So you spoke about challenges just now, even in this regard, that you guys are, I guess, bringing this project to the fore with. So then, finishing this project, as far as you guys are now, what have some of the challenges been so far? Technical challenges, or challenges overall?
To be honest, I consider every single challenge in this project as technical. Some have, the biggest has been access to land, access to public space. The debate around land is majority, in our approach is towards urban land, but the bigger debate is usually towards farmland and ancestral land to a certain extent. But what's unique about this is that we kind of zone into a particular type of land, which is public land, which does not get spoken about in the urban space. So some of the challenges have literally just been accessing land. So, be it from our municipality, be it from private landowners, even just building facades has been difficult. You send you have to write the proposal a certain way, make it sound as, beautiful but nice as possible, be respectful, honorable, whoever, to trying to get students together, trying to get everybody's timetables, syncing, so that we meet in one space and we discuss, and try and finish one thing at a time. But that never really happens. We finish at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, get home by 2 or so, and still have to wake up in time for work, the next morning. So I think the biggest has really just been access to land itself and the bureaucracy behind that. The constant having to go back and forth to, the landowners, if it's to get stamps, from this department, and this department says, no, they don't deal with this, go to this department does not want to see you. It's a lot, and it's been going on for a couple of weeks, but I suppose here we are. Standing strong. Apparently.
You spoke about the youth here earlier on just now. Can you maybe just tell us how this project would kind of be that driving force? Do you feel that this project would be a driving force to get the youth more involved? Can you just talk about how you can get the youth involved?
I think in this particular instance, it's very unique in that it involves students in particular, like NAS architecture and spatial planning students. So it's already a type of youth. Ideally, we would like to involve other youth, but what we have here is already a great starting ground. I've completely forgot the question now. Please do.
Trying to relate it to urban land discussions, so it can be outside of the team that's getting this project going. So maybe just the impact, I guess, your project wants to make. With the youth. So trying to get them more involved.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think two things. I think the one is this project is a teaching mechanism as well. Teaching, especially young people. It's like to a certain extent, it's an access to information on how to get land. Also, teaching young people, policies, space, and all this information that has to do with the debate around land. The other being, it's an art installation. To a certain extent, it has its own leeways and such. So I think in that sense, it is appealing to the youth. I think it's not a government thing. It's a young people-led initiative, and therefore, it should automatically be attractive to other youth as well, and sort of pull them in, especially as it starts to materialize, as it starts to make itself more visible and physical. And even just like the journey towards here, like we started off with just us as students, and then it grew to professionals like yourself, professionals like Bold Creations, to Pame Design. People got interested and got involved, and other young artists as well. So, yeah, I think it's a working method.
Seeing that this project is obviously first of its kind, I haven't really seen any art installations that have. Well, I have. I may not have. But then, with regard to this project at hand, where do you see it going in the next, in future?
I really hope it becomes a catalyst to more art installations, but art installations with a very direct and very strong approach. Like I said, I'm incredibly obsessed with the crossbreeding of art and architecture. So I would like to. I think our plan is to start to cross the borders of art and architecture and experiment more spatial, because these are spatial realms that we're dealing with. So be it, I don't know, it could open doors to us even building shade structures in the city. This is something that we need, but nobody considers it as an important thing, until you walk in that sun. So it could even go in that direction. It could literally start solving problems, spatial problems in the city, artistically. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tulina. I'm from Bold Creations. I'm a visual artist, and how I came to know about this project is that as Bold Creations, we work quite closely with architects, and through one of those collaborations, we were introduced to this project. One of the guys came to us to help them with the construction and design of this project. Yeah, with regards to their material.
What's so unique about the project, and why? What was the pull factor that really said, okay, cool, we really want to be? Can you maybe just get into that a little bit more?
Okay, so why we decided to do this or to join this is because as Bold Creations, as a company, our aim is to reveal Namibian talent, and we saw a very big potential in this because it's a lot of people actually that were involved in this. So from the architects to engineers to the land guys, and then we saw it as art. We saw it as art, and that was a pull factor for us, and we wanted through this to reveal just what can come out of it, the talent and all.
There are a lot of cities, like, say, if I could name a few, like South Africa or New York, they love to integrate art and architecture at the same time. What do you think? Maybe you can just tell us about, I guess, the lack thereof here in Namibia, and then you can maybe start with, the lack thereof here in Namibia, and just your general views on public installations.
Okay, so as an artist, I have a brief background on what art should be. That it's not only limited to portraits, arts and sculptures. Someone can be, for example, I know an air hostess that regards herself as an artist just because of the things she does in her spare time. She doesn't really draw. So art goes so much beyond just what we know as this contemporary arts and stuff like that. So architecture, the basic design of a building is art itself. So it goes so much beyond what we know. So that is why we embrace this project.
And in your opinion, you spoke about art now and architecture and everything like that. Let me just ask it straight. forward. With regard to urban and land discussions, what do you think needs to be more emphasized through this project?
Okay, the main thing, I guess, just opinions, man. How people feel. People go in such an outrage with land and stuff because they feel that they're not heard. They feel left out with opinions. So give people what they want, or at least give them a platform to express themselves how they would like to. If it's really not possible to give them what they want, then make it apparent, but don't ignore them, you know. So, yeah.
Were you speaking about the artists or just the public in general?
The public in general, because they are the ones that mainly go on about land, you know. The artist is there to express. I mean, an artist can go and paint on a building in the night and express himself, but just the beneficiary, the main beneficiary.
So what you're basically saying is that people need to be more involved.
They need to be more involved and feel they need to, sorry, they need to feel involved, basically.
Yeah. Like you feel they need to be more apart. They need to, I guess with this land pavilion, that kind of makes it okay, or it gives people that consent to say, okay, people, you are involved actually. It's not necessarily a discussion that's happening behind closed doors or in a room. This is as much your discussion as it is a discussion between delegates.
Yes.
Can you maybe just emphasize that a bit?
Okay. Okay. Firstly, if I can rephrase, it gives the artist a platform for expression. Number one, it let's say installation art. It gives the viewer also room for participation. It takes it to the second person. It gives it involves, I mean, it involves everyone. It involves everyone. And with regards to the land pavilion, it gives people that platform to involve themselves as well.
She gave you the brief. You can just feel free to go in whenever you want.
Okay. So I feel this project gives a platform to artists in different perspectives, like the engineers, the visual artists, the architects, the performing arts, installation arts, you name it, to just express themselves and come speak about this on an urban platform, you know, just bringing it out there and sorry, what did you say?
To collaborate on
okay. Okay. Una is gone. Okay, so basically to just collaborate on this project on a more urban platform instead of just theoretical, it becomes something outdoors. So basically whoever wants to get involved gets involved.
I'm Jeremy Scholes. I'm a Bachelor Honours Architecture student at NUST. My contribution through this project came through, I befriended Martin and we randomly in class we started debating about all the, problems we're experiencing, and sooner or later he invited me to the discussions, and yeah, I became part of the whole discussion and the idea and the concept. So.
Is there any specific role that you're playing? Like a specific one?
At the moment, well, I think my role at the moment, I give a lot of insight into, how I perceive what land is at the moment, or what the pavilion stands for. So, yeah.
So based on what you know thus far, what do you think is the main aim of this project? What is the most important feature that this project aims to address?
I think the idea of the project is to put a big question mark on our current land issue, because I think the whole thing came about through frustration. What we find as youth at the moment is
being unable to access land, or because I feel that we are, we are part of the working force, and we are unable to to get land, whether buying or even renting is becoming ridiculous. So I feel the pavilion should frustrate people like we are, like we are being frustrated the whole decade.
So based on what you just said now, what do you think are the most? So you say that it's frustrate the people to kind of just I guess touch on the urgency of solutions, effective solutions with regard to this matter. So then, what would be in terms of strategies? What would be the easiest in your opinion? To the best ways or most effective ways, solution-wise.
Solutions of acquiring land or. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things. First of all, I would say we all have a right to be able to access land. So I would start there. At the moment, I don't think we have that opportunity to say I've identified a piece of land that I would potentially want to occupy, and I want to buy, or however the means is. We don't even have that option. Because at the moment, if there's land available, it's through a tender process, and we're just putting up a lot of money, the highest bidder gets the land. So, is that what Namibia is about? Is that how we see access to land? Is it a profit-making scheme? What is it? Because so that's my idea. I think we should firstly get the opportunity to be able to buy land. Because there's a lot of factors after that. After that, there's money. Who has the finances of paying for this piece of land? But at the moment, we don't have that first step of saying, hey, I want to buy that piece of land.
Maintaining it, I think, is also an issue.
Yeah.
All right, so then how would you say that the youth should be involved in solving urban land issues?
I think we should be the basis of any dialogue when it comes to land. At the moment, we are the majority of the working force. So the fact that we are renting is, it says a lot. You're talking about most of the people that are educated. We're not talking about people that are not in school or whatever. So it's a serious issue if you have qualified people that are working as specialists or professionals and they aren't able to buy land. Then what's the next man saying? The person that's not qualified, that's not a professional,
So even someone that's not necessarily in the architecture field or just a general youth, do you feel that it's important for them to know about, I guess the happenings around this issue?
Yep, I feel it should be. I feel everyone should be part and should know about, access to land and what it takes to acquire land.
Okay. My name is Jonathan Gonyi. I'm a fourth-year architecture student doing my honors, and I'm involved in just discussions in this project, mainly technical advice and just discussions on the whole land issue and how to approach the pavilion and how to display certain aspects of it. Yeah.
So, in your experience thus far in your capacity, how has it been working with other professionals and other artists in different
Well, okay, working with artists, it's always a difficult thing, Everyone has their own idea. They all have a different perspective of how to approach certain things. And probably the main challenge is timekeeping, because we always have meetings that are an hour late. Or you say 6 o'clock, people only show up at 7. That means only finish at midnight. So it's quite interesting. Also just learning on how people have different understandings of certain issues, especially when it comes to land, and also how to portray those particular issues. It's been quite interesting getting different views. Yeah.
You mentioned you touched on a few things that you learned just now in the answer you gave. maybe just go in depth a little more, just what else you've learned besides just time management? What more with regard to either land issues or even just working in the group of people?
Yeah.
Just yourself also, maybe about yourself.
I think I've learned that people have different, even though people have different ideas, it's always good to hear different sides of an argument. Some people might have good solutions, but they've never been heard before. So it's always good to listen to people's opinions. So on this platform, it's all about, you know, giving that platform that people can voice their ideas, voice their concerns, because you'll find that people have pretty good and creative solutions. Just that they've never had the opportunity to express it. So that's one thing I'm learning, that, you know, you have to listen to people, and not all ideas are good, but it's also just a skill that we're learning to filter out and encourage people to come up with ideas.
So then the different, I guess, mediums or modes of expression that are currently in this project, that you guys are touching on in this project, do you feel that they're going to be effective? How do you feel?
I think most of them are quite effective. It's been a process. Like I said, there are some ideas that work, others don't. So it's a thing of understanding what one idea portrays for a certain group and how you can best adapt it so that the majority of people can be reached to that message. So depending on the medium and the method, you can always tweak it so you can have reaching a specific group, or have different modes of portraying a message so you can reach as many groups as possible. Yeah.
That being said, then what are your hopes and overall for this project?
Well, so far I think that my hope for this project is that people's understanding of the whole land process can be enlarged or enlightened, so that people can actually understand that, you know, when you want something, you have to go for it. You have to, once in a while, make some noise. You can't just sit back and complain behind closed doors. You actually have to step out and make your voice heard.
My name is Alrico Kavanap. I'm a third year new media design student at College of the Arts. Actually, the way I got to be part of this program was through a colleague of mine, Jacques Mushanja. You know, we previously worked on some stuff together, me and him, and then Martin connected to him, like, you know, in the hopes of getting students from College of the Arts also like involved on the project, you know. So, and then Jacques connected me with Martin, and then we met up with Martin. From there, yeah, it's been a journey since.
So then, with that being said, what was it that inspired you to join the project? What was it? What was that unique piece on the project that inspired you to say that?
I feel like, you know, the topic is not new that we're approaching, you know, but like the way in which we decided to engage the topic, for me, it was very inspiring me, you know, like using arts and bringing young people together, and not just like addressing the issue in a conventional way, you know, like with text and, like, you know, writing petitions and all those boring stuff, you know. So like just because it allows creatives to also address the issue, that's what inspired me, you know, to be part of it.
I guess with regard to creatives and how, you know, this is also a space for creatives to thrive, how do you feel about public installations? Because this thing is centered around installations, right? Can you tell us about how you feel, what your thoughts are on public installations in the city?
Public installations are needed, man, but like we don't really have a lot of them, you know. And most of the public installations that we have are done by foreigners, you know, that probably came on a tour and then, you know, was inspired by the space and did something, you know, like Take That and guys like that, you know. But like in terms of local people, I don't really see a lot of people doing it, you know. And in terms of the relevance of the topic also, you know, people tend to shy away from this type of issues, you know. So like I just feel like it's needed, but also I also understand why we don't really see a lot of them around, because like there's a lot of bureaucracy behind the process of like getting permission and stuff like that, you know. So like if the guys in power could like make things easier for us, you know, it would be awesome. Then maybe like hopefully we could also inspire the young youth to also like, you know, do more installations like this.
All right, so we're gonna shift to urban land discussions here. So with regard to urban land discussions, what do you feel needs to be, in your opinion, more emphasized?
I think the main thing is just rent control, man. Like I don't understand how we in 2018, you know, like we talking about like all the other visions, you know, but like we don't talk about the main issue, which is the problem of centralization that we have in Namibia, you know, because of the fact that we don't decentralize everything. People tend to flock to Windhoek, you know, and because of that, like Windhoek has become like one of the most expensive places to live in. So like I don't understand how these guys are not like seeing this as an issue and like prioritizing it, you know. So like I think that would be the main issue, rent control. Like as soon as we have like a regulating body behind rent and all that stuff, I think we'll be moving towards a better future.
So I'm just in like passing and, you know, people saying what's on their mind and things like that, in terms of making this discussion, urban land discussions. Sorry, let me just rephrase this question. This is obviously a discussion that's only being had by a close group of people. You know what I'm saying? So how do you feel, in your opinion, or what are your hopes, you know, in future, this discussion being more of a, obviously this land pavilion project is kind of bringing it to the public and saying the public should join in this discussion as well.
Exactly.
Do you feel that this project, the land pavilion project, can be a catalyst to that?
Yeah, definitely.
Can you touch on that a bit more?
Definitely. You know, like since we're exploring it in a different way, I feel like certain people would want to join in on the journey because like it's not, as I said earlier, it's not just about like, you know, like policies and regulations, you know, because like even me, but like myself as a creative, I don't like all that black and white boring stuff, you know. To be honest with you, like I like addressing stuff like with visuals and colors and, you know, like sound and, you know, stuff like that. So like I just feel like the main reason why a lot of people are not involved in the land conversation is because the youth are not involved, you know. And the reason why the youth are not involved is because it's boring, you know. And the senior people are not really gonna get involved in that, you know, because it's not really an issue from their era, if it makes sense, you know. Like they're already comfortable with the houses they got from like after they were moved from the old location to Katutura, you know. So like for them it's just like education and, you know, like they don't even think about like accommodation and all that. So like that's why it's not really been in the public like that. But because of the way we're doing it now, I feel like the youth will also see what we're trying to do and get involved.
So then with the youth being involved, then how do you feel that the youth will make it? What difference or how big of an impact do you think the youth will make joining these discussions?
Like, I feel like, you know, we should just be honest with each other, you know, and call it as it is, man. I don't really, like, it would have an impact, but like, I don't think it will have like a actionable impact, if that makes sense, you know. Because like, we live in a country where we don't really have a lot of power, man. And like, people sleep on things, and like, it's gonna take time. It is gonna have an impact, but like the impact that we hope for it to have, it's gonna take time, you know. So like, it's just like small little results that we're looking for right now, you know. Just getting people to just start talking about the issue. Like that's enough for us for now, you know. But the bigger stuff will still tackle over time.
Any closing statements?
I just like to call out everyone that's out there, you know, just because you're still in school or you still live in your parents' house, or you know your father's got 6-7 houses, doesn't mean like this is not relevant to you. You know, we're not really doing this for us. Also, we're doing this for the future generation that's growing up and that still has to come into this world. You know, so like I'd just like to say, like, don't shy away from this conversation, man. So like just join in on it and let's grow the voice, for the voice to be loud enough to be heard. Thank you.
So my name is Martin Namupala. I'm an architecture student here at the Department of Architecture and Spatial Planning at NAST. I'm currently doing my postgrad, basically, and I work part-time in an architectural practice. I'm also involved in some kind of pro bono NGO work that I work in, kind of informal settlement upgradings and so forth. So that's what I currently do.
All right. Can you please give us a background on the project?
So the project was conceptualized here at the department. It was conceptualized here at the department. We started discussing about kind of urban issues that affect us as young people, and we thought, as coming from a creative industry, what would one do to kind of initiate a dialogue around the kind of urban issues in the city? So we thought we create some sort of framework to discuss about land, and we thought urban land is the key thing that we all have in common in as kind of young people in the city. So then we started kind of setting out invites to different kind of young people in the city. That's how we got involved with the College of the Arts and some colleagues from UNAM, different kind of fields. So then from that we said, okay guys, let's set up a framework to discuss the kind of urban land issue. And we kind of thought, okay, perhaps that the fact that land is it's a complex issue, right? It's not something that you could talk about in a week or so. So we thought, let's create a process that would kind of deal thoroughly with urban land issues from a youth perspective. So we thought we'd divide the project up into five installations, if you would like, because as creative people, you want to kind of have a creative kind of process. So the project is made up of 5 installations. Initially, it was supposed to be kind of 5 in 1 month, but we thought that might be kind of creating a buzz and then it's dead. So we thought that each second month you have an installation where you get young people to discuss about certain issues. So the current one that we are doing now, the public projections, is basically hinged on it was hinged on the land conference, right? And really trying to see what is lacking there that we thought that we as young people need to talk about, and which was now the urban land issue. So we thought we have also a week of discussions, but not in some conference or not in some workshop. We take it into the public space so that people that cannot access those spaces basically can come join the discussion. So the idea is that each day of that week you have a specific topic. Monday being the infrastructure, policy, basically a debate about what is the kind of policy and political decisions that have been made that affect land, right? And then Monday is infrastructure, and then housing, and so and so and so and so. So basically we divided it up like that, and that's what we hope to start with, to kind of as an icebreaker, that you have this kind of creative space where people actually get to talk about things that affect them, basically.
So then, with regard to why the land issue and not anything else like the water crisis?
Basically, we like I said, we as young people at the department we're studying, kind of spatial issues like town planning or housing in the city or whatever. And then in that debate, we thought we actually do have problems that are kind of related to land. Such as kind of affordability, such as access to land, such as kind of rent control. All these things are happening in the city right now, and also there's this kind of there was this boil up to the land conference, right? everyone was submitting a paper, everyone was saying this is the most important thing. So we thought as youth, what is our kind of important thing that we can also bring to the table, which is now our discussion on urban land basically.
And in that, can you maybe just talk about what you hope to achieve with this project and some of the challenges that you've experienced overall?
I think maybe to start with the challenges, of course it's as kind of young people coming from different backgrounds, we all have different perceptions and different ideas about land. So coming to a common understanding on what is important about urban land that we need to discuss was one of the biggest challenges, because you have this kind of intense debates that happen until 3 o'clock in the morning, kind of discussion about, okay guys, let's not focus on that, let's focus on this basically. So the conceptualization of the project and kind of forming it into a project was one of the difficult challenges. And of course, the technical things like access to land, access to finance, and kind of creating this academic reasoning why we need these things. So I think that was kind of also a problem. And the hopes or that we hope to achieve with this is that, first of all, to kind of create a space or to create a kind of a platform where people feel like it's okay to have public installations in the city and it should be normalized. And these public installations, it's not about having pretty pictures or having pretty installations. The idea is to have core issues, core mandates that we want to fight or we want to kind of highlight in the city. So the idea is that you bring art and kind of architectural or technical and all these kind of political things into the public sphere so that people kind of begin to engage with that. There's this misconception that Windhoek is a dry city, nothing is happening artistically, but it's because, you know, there are certain limitations, you know, like legislation. You cannot put this up there, you cannot do this and that and that. So the idea is to kind of show other young creatives that you have to kind of push those boundaries for you to kind of come up with interesting structures. So that's number one, to kind of create that inspiration for people to come up with public installations and so forth. I think the other important thing is then to really understand, we as young people, what are we lacking in terms of knowledge when it comes to the land issue? What is that we need to obtain kind of information-wise? Then from there we bring the debate into the public and say, guys, given that this is happening, what are we supposed to do? So basically sparking a process that is supposed to lead to somewhere. Of course, it's not enough that you have dialogues only. It's not enough that you sit around and talk about certain issues. Then the idea is that this starts a process where you have young people that can influence political decisions and technical decisions and kind of being part of teams that kind of shape our cities. Basically, that's the hope, to kind of start that process that leads into action, basically.
So then what would you constitute as being a unique? What would you constitute as being unique about this project? What is the unique feature, that pull factor about the project?
I think it's not necessarily one unique thing. There are certain things that are unique about this project. The first being the collectiveness. The idea is to have kind of these multidisciplinary discussions, that it's not an architectural problem, it's not an engineering problem, you know, it's a societal problem. So we thought of bringing colleagues on board and really starting a dialogue and really seeing the different perspectives on land. So I think that's the first kind of key unique thing when it comes to the project. I think the other one is the platform, having a public platform, taking discussions away from social media and really having social and humane kind of interactions in the public sphere. And I think the last one would be the use of public space in the city. It's an uncontested thing. No one really talks about public space in the city. Sometimes it's public space, but it's perceived as private space. So the idea is to really challenge the kind of notion that public space should be like that, should be dormant, you know, some grass and that's it. The idea is that we kind of spark that kind of inspiration that you can use public space to have certain kind of social things in the urban center. And of course, you want to take this whole debate to other towns as well. Windhoek is not the only town that has land issues, right, or creative kind of issues, right? So the idea is to also have that perpetuation of of inspiration, if you would like, to other towns, that so that they can also, the youth in those towns can also start talking about issues in their specific ways, basically.
So with that being said, do you think that the land pavilion would then, actually progress to other towns?
I think it shouldn't be, because the idea is that the fight against urban issues, the fight against like water or electricity or poverty, there isn't one way to do things. So the land pavilion, the idea is that you have this project that sparks a conversation, and you have people that do other things as inspired by the pavilion. It's not that the pavilion tackles all the problem or this movement tackles all the problem. The idea is that you create inspiration and you create some sort of guidance to say, guys, you have to talk about this way, you have to talk about this way. So we don't kind of want to solve all social problems, but the idea is to create that platform for people to have kind of specific areas that they feel or that they believe are the problems. Because, I mean, we all know that land is not necessarily a problem to some of us. Some of us are well, off, and it's not a problem. But those that are also well off have other problems. So the idea is that then it sparks that reaction to say, okay, guys, maybe we have to tackle our problems also in a specific way. So that is the idea.
So you would say that, so you would agree then if I said that the land pavilion would serve as some sort of a catalyst?
Yes. Yeah, the idea is that it kind of serves as a catalyst that starts a process of dialogue, especially amongst youth, because there is this kind of misconception, and it comes from our elders, that the youth are lazy or the youth do not have any kind of practical inputs when it comes to land issues or infrastructure or whatever. And from our perspective, it's because there's been that disconnect between the kind of our elders and the youth, right? So there's these guys that are saying, no, you guys are not doing anything, and there's these guys that are saying, okay, we don't know what to do. So there's that disconnect. So basically, the idea is that you start a process, like you say, as a catalyst for the pavilion to also create that bridge between the experts and the kind of political people and also the youth, so that they become involved into all these kind of political and policy decisions, basically. Yes.
My name is Tanya Turipamwe-Straw. I am the creative director of Turipamwe Design. It's a design consultancy that focuses on creative output, so looking at interesting projects within the cultural, art and social space, and how design might create an impact for that. So getting involved with the land pavilion was quite an organic process, I would say. It's been a while that I've been really interested in the way that a city is shaped by creativity, or vice versa. And I just had a brilliant email in my inbox one day. And I think it was really it had a lot to do with the space that we currently occupy within the industry. So, as I said, it was just sort of an organic, should I keep going? So just an organic connection.
Did you place visuals? You can start from the top.
Okay, from the top.
Yeah. Alright, you can start from the top.
From the top. Wow. Okay. My name is Tanya Turipamwe-Straw, and I'm the creative director of Turipamwe Design. It's a design consultancy that specializes in graphic design, but really looking at visual communication as a tool and the impact that design can create through art, culture, and socially driven projects. So when the land pavilion came along, it was very much an organic, synchronistic project for us, which I think it was just, I believe, an email in my inbox, and as soon as I'd read it, I just thought, here is something really special, something really relevant, and we've been really looking at doing work that's a lot more collaborative in recent months. So I really appreciated that this really came from the NUST School of Architecture as a driver of a creative project, wanting to seek out partners in both a institutional level, for example with the City of Windhoek, but also in terms of private sector. So it really made sense for us to join forces with NUST in terms of realizing this project.
So with that being said, we I mean, you've been to Cape Town, you've been to Johannesburg, and you see that, I mean, walking around, urban spaces, you see that there are a lot of installations there as well that kind of work towards affecting positive change. What do you think are some of the challenges, in your own opinion, with regard to Namibia and its urban spaces?
Can I look at you while I'm talking?
Go for it.
So the challenges in terms of urban space, I think it's a very layered issue, especially within the historical context of Namibia. But looking at Windhoek as an urban space, it's very mixed. So you've got this sort of old colonial heritage. You also have an apartheid heritage, which I think is still pervasive in the way that the city is currently structured. So you have your suburbs and then this massive growth of Katutura and the areas around Katutura. But what does that mean for the creativity and the identity of a city? I think what makes it problematic but also very interesting at the same time is sort of this idea of, I suppose you can call it migration or commuting. So the idea that we have to move and work between different spaces, so coming from home into the city to work and create and then move out at the end of the evening. I've always found it somewhat, it's sort of like a strange mix because you're residing in a very residential area behind a high wall, and that's not necessarily the space in which you express your creativity, whether it's through your craft or through your work. If we often look at public spaces, you have to come to town. So there's an interesting dynamic between those two things. And I think Windhoek really, it has an opportunity to express itself creatively through an urban space. And I'd like to see a lot more of that. I think a good example of that right now was the Windhoek International Dance Festival. So they used Fidel Castro Street as a public platform on which to perform. So they literally put down a huge sound system and they just invited dancers to perform in that public space. So just the idea of busking, with artists performing in a public space is not something that we see very often. But I think when you're encouraging those sort of artistic interactions within a public space, it makes it feel like the city is one alive, and I think brings an identity to it that young people can identify with. And I think that that's one of the important concepts that the Land Pavilion project looks at is what are young people saying about land or access to the land or the way that we interact with spaces and with land within an urban context such as Windhoek. And I must say, I think that this is specific to Windhoek. It might not necessarily be the case all around the country, but to start looking at our urban environment in that way.
Would you say that that's something that's missing from this discussion with regard to urban land discussions? Can you maybe just get into a little bit more, or is there anything else that you think is missing? I guess or that isn't necessarily being voiced in the urban land discussions?
Yeah, I think at the moment our land discussions, it's very politically motivated, and with reason. I think it's fair to address it within a political context, within a historical context, when we look at issues like, we should start it from the top. Yes, do
you want me to ask it? Should I rephrase it?
Yeah.
I can rephrase it for you. In terms of the recent urban land discussions, what do you think is missing in these discussions?
So the current land discussions in Namibia, especially with the land conference happening at the moment, it's a very layered issue. It is a very political issue. It's very charged by history and by class, and rightfully so. I think that those are really issues that we should be dealing with. But art and creativity and architecture offer another vehicle through which to look at the issue of land. And if we consider that 65% of Namibia's population is youth-based, where is the voice of the youth in terms of this? And where is our voice within an urban context? So how can we use creativity and art and culture to talk about a very complex issue like land, and frame it in a way that perhaps not necessarily historic or political, but would still provide valuable insight into the issues that we're trying to address through this. And I think it creates somewhat of a, I don't want to say like a better playing field, but I think it's a wonderful vehicle through which to talk about these issues, which are often very emotionally charged because it's so layered.
Indeed. How do you see the Land Pavilion project impacting this topic at hand?
I think for me the impact would really be being able to bring an alternative voice to these discussions, one that I believe is already there. We're just offering a platform for it, which I think that's often the case. Like there is that voice. So can you create a project such as this one to offer a space in which to have these types of discussions? And I'd be interested to hear what young people are thinking about issues like land, because at the moment it's somewhat of an ageist sort of approach. I think we're thinking about politicians and about policymakers from a very top-down perspective. And perhaps we're looking at land from the communal farm aspect or from a private land ownership. And let's face it, where do youth fit into that particular context? I don't think we're really featured there. And by we, I mean, I do include myself in that, but also a much bigger voice. And with these types of discussions, I always have to say, I'm speaking from a particular point of view, perhaps from a particular privilege, and I do acknowledge that. But I think it's about opening it up to a space that is democratic and hopefully safe, where we can use creativity to create that platform and bring a narrative and a discussion around some of these issues.
I wanted to, as a creative, I want to ask you about the marriage between art and architecture. Maybe you could just touch on that a little bit. Yeah, it's more or less the same thing, because architecture is art in itself, but then, I mean, art is a different thing also, I guess, in a visual sense.
Yes.
You know, can you maybe just talk about that a little bit? And you can also relate it to installations, and also relate it to the topic at hand.
Architecture, I think architects play a very important role societally, because there's an understanding of the way that we function within spaces and within places. So the concept of space and place, what does that mean for our identities? So how can we use architecture to express space, place, and identity, but both from a form and function perspective? Because if we look at the way that the city is constructed, it must function from a functional perspective. So to create housing spaces, which is very important. But there's of course the aesthetic that comes along with that, the creativity that comes along with that. So how can the artistic side of architecture express who we are and the kinds of visual narrative that we would like to see for our city? And Windhoek has the great opportunity that, yes, we have a colonial heritage, but we can create this new narrative. So I suppose there's somewhat of a responsibility for architects when it comes to that, although I know it's a difficult situation, because how do you liaise with town planning, for example? Or if we had to think of the typical Namibian house, what might that look like if we could reinvent it entirely? If we had to say, right, we're going to take our weather and our climate into consideration, and how might we work with natural material? And if we had to say, what is a Namibian aesthetic, whether that exists or not, but how could we combine that into our urban spaces? And if you look at some of the world's most creative cities, they're often defined characteristically by its architecture. So why is it that when someone comes to Windhoek, the only thing that we can think of is Christuskeep? And while it's a lovely building, it comes from a colonial heritage. So where is our new voice in terms of a Namibian aesthetic for architecture, and where might we find that in the city? is it a cool space in which we're photographing ourselves in front of, or is it a space in which we're seeing public performance or protest? So I think the Land Pavilion project really looks at all these elements and how they might be brought together.
You have given a child an opportunity to see that there's hope.